The following conversation is with Dawn Airhart Witte. She is the founder of Desire to Inspire Foundation. It's just such a great privilege to have you here today with me. I am so inspired by your journey. I am so inspired by your work that you are doing these days in Africa. And I would love to ask you, what was your first creative spark of inspiration that actually brought you to found Desire to Inspire Foundation?
I started Desire to Inspire Foundation 8 years ago, and my whole concept was to, when you turn on the news, you see negative story after negative story after negative story, and I was like, I know so many people doing so many good things, rescuing dogs, helping people, cancer patients, all kinds of things, and I was like, I'm going to share those stories, to counter like the narrative that we constantly are bombarded with, and then I started the foundation with that notion, and then I went to Africa and I met all of these people that were doing such amazing things, inspiring things. Despite the challenges they were facing themselves, they were still helping other people. They were taking in children, and I was like, these stories, I must share these stories, because even when I'm going through, something that I think is like, a drama in my life, I look at the things that they're experiencing and the way they show up. I mean, Susan in Sierra Leone, she was 23 when I met her. She was taking care of 31 orphan girls, and she was 23 years old. And so I'm like, if those stories need to be told, people need to hear about that. And then also let me help them in what they're doing, because they have so many challenges. And so, I went to Africa the first time in 2017, and I just fell in love. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the beautiful, like environment, like everything about Africa is like so warm and welcoming. What we see in the news and in the things that we read, it's like, oh, poverty, poverty. Yes, there is poverty, but you know what, there is like this richness of their souls. There's joy, there's laughter, there's warmth, there's welcoming. And I just, I'm addicted. I'm addicted. So I started by going to Ghana, and now I've been to 6 countries in Africa. I've spent 4 months in Africa. And I love it. I love the people. I love everything about it. And, being able to go and see those children and let them know that they are important and that they matter and that they have something incredible to bring to this world, and to help them do that, just like a mom does with their own children. I get to do that. And I get to do that for hundreds, thousands of children. It fills my soul.
Beautiful. Thank you for making it happen. Congratulations also on making the move. You mentioned before we started recording, you mentioned that you always felt a calling towards Africa. Why
Mhm.
is it so?
You know what? I have gone on a shamanic journey. I have asked God. I have done all these things, like, why Africa? I'm half Indian. So if I was called to India, that would have made more sense to me. I'd be like, oh, okay. But I don't know exactly why Africa, but I do know every time I ask the question, the answer I always get, I see the children. They raise their hands in my visions. It's always the children. And I don't know what it is about them that I love so much, but they've always called to me. And when I'm there, I just feel like, yep, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I love it.
Mhm. Wonderful. And I know that the fact that you're right now working in Africa with your organization is also a result of your personal transition. Could you share a bit more about this? How did it start? What actually triggered the transition? And how you came up with the idea in general to found this foundation?
Well, it's a funny story. I was a stay-at-home mom for, all of my daughters, lives up until they were like in college and everything. And I was like, now that I don't need to mommy them anymore, what are my next steps? What do I do next with my life? And I remember one time asking, what do I do? What am I even good at? And I remember hearing, you know how to love people well. I'm like, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? And at the time, I was just like, I don't know. I don't know what that even means. But I think that's like one of the greatest things you can be good at, is loving people. And so I took that love, and these children that don't have moms or parents, I get to put my love, give that to them. And that fulfills me, and it feels something for them too. So that was, I knew I wanted to do something, but I just didn't know exactly what it was. And again, it was, and I think when I help people like on their journeys, like trying to figure out their purpose and, their next steps in life, I think they're always like little breadcrumbs along the path of our lives that give us these indicators. Like I said before, like Africa's always been there. I didn't know why do I feel so called to do this? But it was always a part of me. And now that I look back, hindsight's 2020, you can look back and be like, oh, now it makes sense. But I think you need to pay attention to those little breadcrumbs along the way and follow those things that call to your soul, because that will take you to where you're supposed to go.
And it's also a wonderful example of living by your mantra, or by the mantra you're living. It's be the change you want to see in the world, right? So that's what they are
Mhm.
doing very beautifully today with your foundation. Could you give us tangible examples of how you do it actually in Africa? What type of activities do you organize there? What are the purpose of the activities, and what is maybe the help that you need at the moment to make them happen?
Well, I don't go in and tell anybody what I'm there to do. I see what they need. And whatever is they need, I will help them with that need. So in Ghana, we've drilled 3 boreholes in collaboration with Heart Foundation. In Sierra Leone, we moved our girls from one room, not one bedroom, but one room where they slept on the floor, a concrete floor, to a house where they all have beds. We bought them beds. And when I went back to visit them and in their new house, they pulled me into the bedroom because they really wanted to show me their beds. They were so excited to have those. In Uganda, we've been making, meeting basic needs, and we're building a community. We're building a house for Mama Josephine, and then creating a community center. So that's what I'm currently working on, that project. We're also doing an art exchange program with children in Ohio with my friend Tamika. She is she's got the kids in Ohio, and then I'm going to have my kids in Ghana, and we're going to exchange like art so that they can like learn the cultures of each other. And I think I'm so excited about doing that. So we're in the process of doing that. So whatever it is they need, I will help them with that particular need.
And what do you need these days? Is there anything that you feel like I need that right now for myself, not just for the organization?
You know what? Right now we're raising the money to do the Mama Josephine's house, and instead of doing a fundraiser, because I've been thinking about this for a while. There's my dog's tail in the background.
Hi.
um, I just think, what, a portion, I have a product line and I have my books and things like that. A portion of all of the proceeds for those items will go to fund the foundation. So I feel like for me, like that is equal exchange. Like you buy a shirt or you buy a book, and part of that book will go to fund the work. And so then you get something for your kindness, and then I get something to help the foundation. So I'm focusing on like really like putting out my books more so that I can get, because it's already there. And again, a donation is wonderful. I think donations are beautiful and lovely, but I still feel like I like the exchange of like you getting something for your donation.
Mm-hmm. Talking about books, because that's something we both are clearly passionate about. Could you please share something about your creative process? I know you wrote 12 books by now.
Uh, 13, I think.
That's the last one, yes. Could you please share something about your creative process, maybe something more about the book that you have written so far?
You know what? All my books I write them from a place of like wanting to inspire people, make them better. My first book, it came from like me thinking of things that I wanted to share with my daughters, like just like little quotes that I came up with. I wanted them to know like the importance of being kind, the importance of being loved, the importance of being strong and happy and inspired in your lives. And so like I want to put that out into the world. I want people to understand those things, like how important those things are, because in the world that we live in, we're chasing money, we're chasing success, fame, whatever it is that people are chasing. And those aren't the things that really matter. The things that really matter are our relationships and what we do in the world to impact the world. And so I want people to know that and stop like chasing, things that don't really matter. At the end of our days, we're not going to be buried with our shoes and our cars. And, we're going to care about the people that we loved and what kind of things that we did while we were here and how will people remember us. So I write from that place.
That's a wonderful creative process. And the last book that you have written, could you tell us a little bit more about that?
The last book was, is this the last one? Yeah, Sacred Words of Africa. And again, inspired by Africa. When I went to Africa the second time, I was in Rwanda and I saw the word Ubuntu, and it means I am because we are.
Yes.
And oh, it touched my heart so much. I'm like, this is the best word ever. I had it tattooed on my ankle because I just love it so much. And then I heard the word Sawabuna, and that means I see you, I value you, you are important to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, how many other words are there? So I started researching like all of these words from Africa that just have so much meaning packed into one word. And this book has 20 of those words. And I write about like the meaning and why it's so important that, you know, sawubona, to see somebody, to let them know that they matter. What a gift. So I wanted to
Absolutely.
share. Yeah.
And such a power of words, right? In
Hmm.
general, words are super powerful. The way we speak, the way we express ourselves and we show up in the world is just so extremely powerful. And I have been observing you doing that so beautifully also on your channels, on your website, that you clearly speak from the place of heart and place of encouragement and love. And that's something definitely that inspires many of us, definitely inspires me to continue also with my work. Talking about a little bit about the future, what is your vision for the future? What would you like to see in this world, and how would you like to contribute to that change?
You know what? I just want people to see each other and understand that we are all connected to everything. You know, we are connected to nature. We are connected to the animals. We are connected to each other. We are not, no man is an island, right? And so when we understand that, I think we will do better, be kinder, have more compassion for each other when we know that, like, what I do doesn't just affect me, it affects everybody. It's a ripple. And like we met with Cornelia, right? It's all energy. Every single thing we do has energy behind it. And that energy ripples out beyond us and just that one act. So when we keep that in mind, then we're kinder. You know, and again, I've always been like this. I didn't understand the energy thing like years and years ago. I understand it more now. But like you're at the grocery store, treat that person behind the cash register like they matter because they do. You know, everybody matters. And that's what I would love to see. I would love to see everybody treating other people with kindness and compassion because I think that's how we change the world. One person at a time, every interaction at a time. That's how we make a difference.
I need to pause here for myself, kind of to let it sink in my body, because it's so beautiful, this share that we always have an impact in general. Everything what we are talking about, how we act, how we react, how we express ourselves, has always an impact on other people and in general on the world. Was that you mentioned that you didn't know for a very long time, right? That there is such a thing like energy. How did you actually come up with this more energetic slash spiritual awareness in your life?
I just, over the last, I don't know, maybe I've always studied psychology, you know, psychology, philosophy, mythology, you know, all those things always like really like I'm a geek about it. You know, I will watch YouTube video about it. So it's always been something I've been passionate about because I'm like, why do we exist? Like, what are our lives here for? You know, I've always wanted to know that because I think it's important. I'm not just like out in the world for no reason, right? We're all here for some reason. What is that? And so that's always been very intriguing to me. And then like the energy part of it, like that has been more in my awareness, but the being kind to people has always been part of who I am. You know, I don't even understand how people don't understand that because it's just like our nature, right? We're here for each other. We have to exist on this planet together. Why not make it a nice place to be together, right? So I've just, you know, over the last 10 years, I think the energy part of it and, you know, that part of it has like I've started to understand that a little bit more. But again, the general notion has always just been part of who I am.
Beautiful. It's so interesting that you are talking about this because at the end we can also make a choice how we show up in the world. And it's kind of a conscious choice. It's nothing is kind of pre-written for us in general.
You know what? I always say, like, I treat people the way I would like to be treated, right? And that's so simple. It's such a simple notion. Do you want somebody who's like complaining and yelling and mean? Would you like to be treated like that? So if you don't want to be treated like that, then don't do that to somebody else. And so I show up as the person I would, whether I'm in an Uber or, a Lyft or whatever. If I'm the passenger in the car, I'm going to treat that person with kindness and, I always like get into long conversations with my Uber drivers or whatever it is, because I'm like, I want to treat people the way, again, I would like to be treated. And so that's it's very, very simple. And I don't know why it's so hard for people to do it.
There are for sure many reasons, right? We are all very complex beings.
Yes.
But on the other hand, as we mentioned, we can always choose how we treat each other, how we treat other people. If there would be any words of wisdom that you would love to share with our audience, what would you share?
I think I've already said, like, this is how I always think whenever anybody asks me that, I always say, you know what, treat people with kindness in every single interaction, in your family, in the world at large, strangers. One of the things I noticed about when I go to Africa, and I literally did an experiment in my head, right? Like when I would walk anywhere, I would always like say, good morning, good afternoon, hello, how are you? In Africa, people always respond in the same. They smile, they say hello, how are you doing? And I tried it here. I'm like, okay, let me try that here when I'm just like out walking around. Sometimes people are looking down, they're looking at their phones. Like the disconnect we have here is so different than it is in Africa. And I think that might be one of the reasons I love it so much. But like in every interaction you have, just show up as the person that you would like to encounter. Smile at a stranger, give a genuine compliment, you know, see people. And when you do that, you will be surprised at like how much your life improves.
Yeah, wonderful. And the last question, I'm very curious to learn about what would you tell your younger self? Let's imagine you're 20 years old again. And if you had a chance to speak to her, what would you tell her?
Tell her you've got this. Like go for your dreams, dream big, and just go for it. Because the universe will support you. God will support you in whatever is your big dreams are. And the bigger you dream, like nothing's impossible. If you were given a vision or a dream, you're given that for a reason. So go for it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for your time today, Dawn. And I keep my fingers crossed for development of any on every project you have in Africa, but also beyond. And if there would be anything that we can help you with, you know how to find us. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Creative Bites. It's been a pleasure sharing these stories and insights with you. Remember, creativity is all around us, ready to be discovered, nurtured, and celebrated. I'm Ivona Fluda, and until next time, keep creating, keep exploring, and keep inspiring. Thanks for listening, and goodbye for now.